The next time you're at the thrift store, don't pass up those glass trays. They look plain, but trust me, they're hiding some serious potential. First things first, grab a gold paint pen and outline the rim of your tray. This one little step instantly gives it an expensive, more polished look. Let it dry, and then we move on. For my first tray, I'm using a gorgeous floral and strawberry pattern napkin. Paper napkins like these have multiple layers. You only need the top printed layer, so gently separate them. Flip your glass tray over and brush a layer of Mod Podge decoupage glue onto the back of the glass. Once it's tacky, line up your napkin pattern exactly how you want it to show through the glass. Then press the napkin face down onto the glue. Smooth out any wrinkles gently with your fingers. Then trim any excess napkin from the corners or along the edges. Now you want to work your way around the sides to attach the paper napkin. Brush on more glue, press the napkin down, and smooth as you go. When you hit a corner, just create a little fold and secure it to one side with a dab of glue. Simple as that. Once the sides are covered, seal everything with a top coat of Mod Podge over the back and sides and let it dry completely. Once dry, grab a small pair of sharp scissors and trim away any excess paper. Then lightly sand the edges for a clean, smooth finish. And look at that. This looks like one of those high-end enamel trays that are so popular right now. This one-of-a-kind pattern tray is ready to shine on a coffee table, a kitchen counter, honestly, anywhere in your home. For my second tray, I wanted a completely different look, a whimsical duck print on a solid black background. See all that crumpled tissue paper on the floor after the presents are opened? Don't throw it away. Gather your used tissue paper, lay it flat on the counter, and smooth it out with your hands. Take some large glass plates from the dollar store and clean the back of the plates with rubbing alcohol. Place a mixing bowl upside down on your surface and lay the glass plate face down on top of the bowl. Now take a gold paint pen and outline the outside perimeter on the back of the plate. Cut a piece of your tissue paper into a smaller size so the width of the paper is roughly the width of half the plate. Next, apply a thin layer of decoupage glue around half of the back rim of the plate. Press your tissue paper face side down onto the rim half of the plate. Smooth the paper onto the rim, but don't worry about wrinkles as this adds to the texture of the design. Next, cut away pieces of the tissue paper that are not glued to the plate. Apply glue to the second half of the rim and press another small piece of tissue paper and again smooth out with your fingers. Cut away large sections of excess tissue paper that is not adhering to the plate. With some small, sharp scissors, cut away the excess paper in the center of the plate by keeping the scissor blades right next to the glued section. Work your way around the plate center, cutting excess tissue as you go. Also, cut away the rest of the excess paper from the outer perimeter of the plate. Now brush a top coat of decoupage glue over the entire back rim of the plate to seal. We've decoupaged large glass plates. How about some small plates? Follow the same process. However, this time, apply glue to the back center of the plate. Place some tissue, a coordinating pattern is always nice, face down and centered on the plate. Press the tissue to the plate and smooth out wrinkles with your fingers. Trim excess paper from the perimeter and then brush glue over the entire back of the plate to seal it. Don't stop there. Take some dollar store lanterns and spray paint them a basic white color. Once the paint is dry, start to decoupage with used tissue. Take it one side at a time. Apply glue to the front surface of one side. Press tissue onto the glued surface and smooth it with your fingers. Trim excess paper on the outer edges, brush glue under the excess paper, and fold and smooth the paper over the edges. For the center, pierce the paper in the center of the lantern's arch. Cut the tissue at an angle toward the corners of the opening. If there's an arch in the lantern like mine, make some smaller cuts toward the edge of the arch. Trim these inner flaps to about a 1/2 inch. Then apply some glue on the inside of the lantern and fold the flaps under so they can't be seen. As with the plates, brush a top coat of decoupage glue over the entire outside of the lantern. Set a festive holiday table by layering a placemat, the larger decoupaged plate, a cloth napkin, and finally the smaller decoupaged plate. Your guests will appreciate the color, pattern, and charm of your decoupage Christmas tablescape. I hope this inspired you to upcycle used tissue paper into a beautiful table setting for the holiday season.
Quick trip to my local Dollarama. I cleaned out the jar and then looked through my collection of napkins and chose this blue and white one. Separate the layers. I only need the top printed layer for this project. Cut the napkin so that you have enough to cover the body of the jar. Now I'm using some clear glue mixed with a tiny amount of water. Mix it together and then using a very soft paintbrush, paint it onto the side of the glass jar. Work in small sections. Then lay down the paper napkin and pat it down very carefully, and then using a piece of scrunched up plastic wrap, use that to pat down the napkin and eliminate any wrinkles that way. Carry on all around the jar, and if you get to the end and you've got a piece missing, just cut a strip and stick that down in the same way. And now for the bottom of the jar. Draw around the lid because that will be the right size, and cut out the piece of napkin, stick it to the bottom of the jar in the same way. And now for the lid. Using the same process, cut out a circle for the top and a little strip for the edge and stick it in place. When it was dry, I decided to give it 2 coats of a gloss varnish. This kind of takes away the papery feel of it all and makes it look like the design has been painted on there. And when that was dry, I've taken a battery-operated puck light and stuck it into the lid of the glass jar. And here are my finished chinoiserie jars. Don't they look great?
This ottoman was headed out to the curb. I decided to rescue it and give it a little makeover. This is made of microfiber, and you can paint microfiber. I picked up some white chalk paint, and I'm mixing it with a little bit of water, so it's really thin. Now I'm just using a big paintbrush to paint the fabric. Because the paint is really watered down, it's almost dyeing the fabric and really seeping in. Now that the paint is completely dry, I can add some more color to this. I picked up 2 kinds of fabric. I have kind of a citrusy, colorful pattern on each one. And I'm going to cut 2-inch wide strips. To attach this fabric to the ottoman, I'm using a special Mod Podge made for fabric. To use this, I'm going to add a thin coat to the back of the strip of fabric and then press it onto the ottoman. I want to seal it really good with my fingers and make sure it has a nice tight seal around the fabric. I'm going to repeat this for each strip of fabric that I cut. And then I need to walk away for a couple hours and let that dry. Once dry, it's time to seal that fabric in. So I'm just going to use another coat of Mod Podge over the top of the fabric. This is going to seal the edges and help this hold up to a lot of wear. Now I can use this in my living room. I've covered up the stained fabric and I can use it as a footstool, an extra seat, or a decorative spot.
I found this little side table at a thrift store and knew it had potential. First, I measured where the legs ended and marked my cut line with a pencil. Then I set the depth on my circular saw and carefully cut the table in half. After that, I gave it a good wash and painted it with a creamy chalk paint that instantly brightened it up. For a bit of flair, I grabbed some pretty napkins from my craft stash and decoupaged them onto the top using Mod Podge and a paintbrush. Once everything was dry, I hung it next to my recliner in the basement and added a few decor pieces. I love how this simple and affordable project turned out. It adds both charm and function to a space where a full-size table just would not have fit.